Hi, Fabienne. Welcome back to the Stephen Shields radio show. How are you? It's December now. The 2021's about to end. Hopefully, 2022 will be a wonderful year for me and you. How's things going with you?
Things are going really well, thanks. Thanks so much for having me. It's nice to see you
Awesome.
again.
And have you been busy on Insight Timer as well?
Oh my goodness. Yes, I have been so busy.
Hmm.
There's been so much going on. Do you want me to give you a couple of updates?
Yeah, go for it.
So I think the last time we spoke, I had just launched my Healing the Abandonment Wound course. So that's out now,
Hmm.
which is amazing. This year, I've also been doing a ton of live sessions because Insight Timer has that availability now where we can actually just go live and meet with everybody and
Hmm.
speak. And then just a couple of weeks back, I am now a mentor on Insight Timer as well. So that
Awesome.
means that people can now book one-to-one sessions with me directly through the app, and that also I have a workshop. So it's a paid for one, but it's a
Hmm.
paid for workshop starting in January, which is all going to be about how we create a secure attachment style.
Congratulations for earning the mentoring as well. That's not easy to get to. I recently became a top mentor on the Wisdom app because I do podcast on audio apps too myself. I do like talks on what's going on in the world. And yeah, it's not easy to become a mentor. So congratulations to you, Fabienne.
Yeah, it's such a privilege, really. I've been working with the app for quite a while, so
Mm.
I'm just really, really grateful. I love the community. I love working with the people there, and for me, it's just yeah, it feels like home. Like when I'm there, I'm like it's home. I'm so happy that I found my place in the world. So yeah, it's really an honor.
No, you've done well. And what do you got plans over Christmas and for the New Year's? What's on your to-do list? I know we got mentoring. Anything else coming up for next year?
So next year is going to be really, really interesting. I'm making a lot of shifts and changes, but I can't talk about them too much yet because I'm still in the planning phase at the moment. But definitely some really exciting things coming up. There's the potential of me having a bigger course. So, at the moment, some of the ones that I've got are really more like a mini course. It's like a 10-minute segment each day, things like that. But for the new year, for 2022, I'm looking at putting together a course which really has really all the everything, right? So
Mm,
literally everything that I teach about and share about, kind of putting together a full course that encompasses all of it. And
mm,
really it's how
mm,
to transform your life essentially. So that's definitely on the agenda for next year. Also opening up spaces for my group coaching membership.
mm,
So come January, there'll be spaces available for people to join that,
mm,
which is amazing. We meet every Monday, which is super, super cool, and work through a different theme each month, which is amazing. Focusing also on accountability,
mm,
focusing
mm,
on so really driving everybody in the class to actually reach their goals and their potentials and do the things that they want to do.
mm,
So for this month, we in December was looking at, well, what are our intentions? What are our goals for 2022? And just having people recognize that you are in the 1% of people if you are writing your goals down and you are regularly reviewing them. That will
mm,
put you in the 1% of people that are the highest achievers in the world if you do
mm,
that. 80% of people don't even think about their goals.
mm,
And I always look at it like if we are walking through life, right? Like it's like if you turn up to a restaurant
mm,
and you sat down and you just said, yeah, I want breakfast, please. You're just going to get anything. You have no idea what you're going to get. It's the same
mm,
with life. You walk through life and you don't set goals and you don't decide what you do want, you're going to get served something anyway. So you might as well take that time out. And it doesn't take very long, right, to set goals, just 15 minutes, putting that aside and just thinking, like, what do I want for next year? And coming up with
mm,
one thing is going to do you a world of good because you're then not letting life just take you where it wants. You're actually deciding, where do I
mm.
want.
Exactly. I mean, I've got a goal setting app called Strides on my iPhone, so yeah, set my goals and yeah, tick them off. But sometimes I've made my goals too big and it gets too overwhelming, so I've had to narrow down. But that's a learning curve. I mean, there's so much material out there on goal setting, Fabienne. It's like, but I think it's just keeping it simple at the end of the day. Like, I've tried to make a goal about going hiking one day a week. I went hiking yesterday, and yeah, it was quite good. A little warm, got out of the house because we were in a lockdown for 2 months in New South Wales. That was not fun. Yeah. So that's what I've been doing.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. Well, the thing for me, like you say, it's important to keep it simple. There's no point trying to complicate things or make them something that they need not be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the way that I say is best to kind of navigate your goals. First process is literally to just take a blank piece of paper and write down everything you've ever wanted in your life, right? That could literally be a smoothie maker, a going on a hike in a particular sport. It could be getting a new car. It could be changing your job. Like, it could literally be whatever it is that you want, but just write down all the things on my list of 50s, because I always do this. So it's like a list of all the things that you want, and I usually push myself to come up with 50 things. And so on that list, there's all sorts of things. And I was just telling my group coaching ladies last night that, you know, something that's been on my list for the last like 2 years at least has been to own a camper van. And I'm now realizing, like, this year I went and looked at my goals and I'm like, actually, that one's just not going to make it here anymore. I think I'm probably gonna get out in a camper van for about 3 days and then suddenly realize that I really miss my home comfort. So maybe that goal has soured now, and maybe I'm moving into a different realm where other things are more important to me. But that's like the one thing. It doesn't mean that every single one of those goals is going to come true, because we shift and change and we're always growing, right? And where you are at one point in your life doesn't mean you're going to be there again in, you know, a year or even 2 years time. So coming up with this big list, it's just about dreaming big, right? Being able to have everything that we want in life. You know, I really am a believer that we can have whatever it is that we want in life. We just have to set our mind towards it.
Yeah, also too, you've got to put hard work in as well. Definitely, I think. But yeah, it's a personal thing, goal setting, Fabienne. You know, I have an app that helps me, and I just get reminders and notifications every day to remind me. But yeah, sometimes if it doesn't work out, it's good just to change it too.
Absolutely. I am a big believer of renegotiating your goals. So like I said, for me, for example, this goal had been on my list for like the last 2 years, owning a camper van. This year I looked at it and I was like, am I really going to put this on the list again? Do I really, really want that? I mean, yeah, sure. It matches up. It lines up with one of my values. So one of my values is adventure, right? It really lines up with one of my values because it would be a super adventurous thing to do. But the reality of it is, am I actually going to do that? Do I really want that? I'm like, no, I think I'm going to renegotiate that task, and I'm just going to put it to the side for now. Maybe in another X amount of years, it will come back on the list again, or maybe not. But I'm really a big believer as well of just renegotiating things. And this is something we also do. So the end of the month in a group coaching program, we're always reviewing big visions and goals. And one of the things that we talk about is, can I delegate something off my list? Can I delete something off my list? Because often we're walking around with all these different tasks and even goals sometimes. Oh, I need to achieve this, or I need to do that. But if you really tune in and really listen deeply to yourself, that thing that you put on your list might not be something that you actually want anymore. It might be outdated. It might be something that you think that you should do, right? So thinking about, okay, is this something that I really need? Is this something that I really want? And if not, can I delegate it to someone else? Can I ask a friend to do it? Can I ask somebody to help me with it so I can make this dream come true? Or do I just need to just delete it altogether?
Yeah, and I've come to the conclusion of deleting stuff too, and don't be ashamed to delete some stuff that doesn't work out as well, you know. No, but that's really good that you're doing that. You know, a lot of things have happened too politically in the world, and there's a lot of negativity out there. Actually, on a positive view, I'm watching the Beatles get back on Disney Plus because I'm a huge Beatles fan. No, it's really interesting, Fabienne. Watching the Beatles, and the amount of cigarettes they used to smoke was crazy. You know.
Wow.
The Beatles are awesome. Do you listen to the Beatles?
I'm not, so I don't really listen to the Beatles too much. You know, obviously they are awesome, but they're not huge on my playlist at the moment. No, I was actually just a couple of weeks ago, I was having a whole review of all the music I'd been listening to throughout my life. And there was some really interesting moments. And again, it's like anything, you know, with our personal growth. Same with our music taste. Our music taste evolves over time, right? So it's interesting to see how we grow through the different music that we listen to. You know, I back in the day used to be a bit of a really into kind of like the emo music and metal and like all this kind of hardcore screamo. Even I used to listen to. I don't know how I could possibly do that now. I don't think my brain will take it, although I love listening to some of the old songs that I used to enjoy.
Do you like listening to Metallica whenever you get a chance?
Metallica was never big on my list, but bands that I really used to like were people like Hawthorne Heights. They were amazing. Silverstein, they were super amazing for me. Like me and my sister used to go to like all the concerts. I think the first concert that got me into like that kind of side of music, still pretty wholesome to be honest with you, was All American Rejects. And I went to that concert with a cousin of mine, and suddenly, yeah, like I was like, oh, this is interesting. And the next thing you know, I just went down that path. But you know, I write about this in my book. It's really important that we're conscientious of what we're listening to, right? And that is feeding our soul. You know, you've just mentioned, right, there's some negative things going on in the world, you know, let's think about the positives, right? Well, this is what's happening with everything that we're doing in our life, right? So the music that we're listening to, this is going to give us positive vibes, or it's going to give us more negative vibes, right? What are the words that people are saying? Something that I have a really big kind of issue with is that there's so much music that's out in the world today, the more modern music, but the words that people are saying, like, do I want to say those words to myself? Is that going to help me feel like I'm lifted up, like I am, you know, I am growing, that I'm like living to my highest potential? Or am I actually really you know, degrading maybe a certain gender? Or am I really kind of like, you know, is it actually helpful what the words are? So I'm really conscientious about what music I listen to, and making sure that it has that, I guess, neutral vibe in a way, where I know that I'm not going to add anything to my life, to my consciousness, that is going to kind of take life away from me, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're right there. I mean, I studied music too, but the last thing I wanted to listen to was music, unless it was a live concert of Hans Zimmer, which is very uplifting too. I've seen Hans Zimmer live in Dream Theater. Look, when I'm working out, I listen to political podcasts too. I like to know what's going on. Audio books sometimes. Yeah, I don't know. Music industry's changed a lot, except the Beatles. I'll definitely put the Beatles on. I was mowing the lawn the other day and I was listening to the Beatles, and yeah, it makes the job go quicker.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the thing, like, it's like the bands like that, like if you listen back, and you know, I know it's funny because like people will often, like people that know me really well, my family, people that are in my life, you know, they will laugh at, because I'm such a grandma in that respect, you know, like I really am like so much more. I don't have it here where I'm living in Ibiza at the minute, because it's just too much to ship. But I used to have an old record player, and I used to listen to everything on vinyl, and I used to just love that. Like it was such a beautiful experience. You know, you'd listen to one track, you put it on, and then by the end it would finish, and then the music would have stopped, you know, and then you have to go back and you choose something else. And it's just, I think that there's so much beauty in the way that things were. And yeah, I guess I have a lot of nostalgia about that.
So yeah, vinyl actually sounds better apparently than the whole Spotify too. You know, I got music on Spotify. Who knows? I'll put it on a vinyl one day in the future. Yeah. And yeah, no, if I recommend you watch the Beatles Get Back if you can, the 3-part series. Goes to show, I think when Ringo was going to break up with the band, it's a shame they sacked Pete Best, the drummer. And I don't know why would they want to sack the original drummer for? And they were very talented, you know, and they're just trying out new stuff, Fabienne.
Yeah.
You know, you could see Yoko's just hanging around John Lennon all the time. And yeah, God, the amount of cigarettes they smoked was nuts.
Yeah. Well, I guess, then there was not the rules that we have today around things like that, right? So, and maybe there wasn't the knowledge, but it was super popular. I mean, everybody did that.
Yeah, they actually came to Australia, but it's a shame they broke up. Egos get in the way, money. This is where the whole money side comes into the music business. That's what I hate, is the whole money and the business side.
Well, I don't think that there's anything wrong with money. Money's just money.
But
Right?
then egos get involved. You look at the Rolling Stones, Fabienne, they're 80 years old and they have to go touring. You'd think at that age, wouldn't you want to retire? I would.
Well, I think
done it all.
if you love the work that you do, then you will never be working a day in your life. I mean, that's essentially how I feel. I used to work a job before. I used to have a job. I used to work more in the corporate world, right? That felt like a job to me. I could never perceive the idea of working until I was 80 years old in that role. The work that I do now is so meaningful and enjoyable and uplifting and even alluring that like I love to do it. And if I get the pleasure to live until I'm 80 or 90 or 100, which I hope I do, I would love it if I'm still doing this. That would give me nothing but pleasure to continue to do that work, because I think when you find the thing that you really love, it's not work anymore. Like, it ceases to be work. It's just purpose. And there's nothing that can hold you back from that.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with what you said. You got to think, okay, people don't see that, okay, these big bands have their own bills to pay, and they're not making their whole living from their royalties like they used to 50 years ago. And I had a musician on the podcast too. We talked about this, and it's like, having to go on tour again. It's so expensive.
Well, I can't really comment on that because I'm not in the music industry, unfortunately. So I don't know what the rules are and how they do things. But the only thing that I can hope, which is what I hope for most people, is that if you're doing something, you're doing it with a full heart and because you really want to. And it's not just necessarily about paying bills. And I think that for most people, if they found the thing that they love, just a necessity, they have to, they need to show up and do that and offer that because it's inside their soul and it's a gift that they need to give the world. And so that doesn't matter about what age you are, whether you're 5 years old or whether you're 80 years old.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, Metallica's hit in their 50s and they're still going 40 years as well. That's a long time that they haven't broke up. Very rare does a top band stay together. Then you get the whole legals thing. You remember the whole Napster thing? People were downloading music illegally, and then Lars Ulrich sued them.
Oh, wow. Do you know what? I don't recall that. I'm not a big news person personally. I'm really, as I said, same way with music. I listen to music, but I listen to certain kinds of music. I'm very conscientious about what things enter into my life and into my space, and I'm very selective. So not really much big on the news thing. So I don't know if I do recall that, but yeah, if you're telling me it happened, I'm sure that it did.
Yeah. And it's the industry's changed a lot. I don't know what it's like in the book publishing business. I know you've published a couple of books too. Is there things that you're not happy with, or there's things that you feel that could be better as an author, Fabienne?
I think that, Stephen, the way that I look at the world is not really about the things that are wrong with the world. I look at the world about the way that the things are right. And if something bothers me, then it's up to me to take responsibility for that and change that. I hold the belief that we need to be 100% responsible for our life, for everything that is happening in our life. And that means the good and the bad and all of the in between, the crazy, the weird, and everything. And so for me, whatever I am encountering, right, I know that part of me is calling that in also. So I'm actually at the moment taking my certification so that I can become trained in Ho'oponopono, which is
cool.
a Hawaiian practice. And so the practice is that you basically have a mantra where you say, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. So when things show up in the world where you're like, oh, well, I don't like that, or oh, this doesn't work for me, you can just practice saying that mantra over and over. There's plenty of other things that we can do as well, but that's one of the kind of key things, and other people might have heard of that before. Even on Insight Timer, there's some tracks that you can listen to. You can put this on before you go to bed or in the morning while you're waking up and getting ready in the morning, all this kind of stuff, maybe while you're driving in the car. Great way to do it. But what it does is it basically then allows this, whatever it is that you're feeling, to be transmuted, essentially. And so the story, I don't know if you know about what the story is with it, but essentially there was a guy that was in Hawaii that had cured a whole ward of mentally ill criminals. Had not seen one of those patients. He did not physically see them, did not talk to them. He had their files, he was in his own little office, and he literally practiced the process, right? The mantra, the healing technique, and he cured, like both in him curing himself, he cured them, right? And so his view is that whatever we have inside of us is also inside the other person. And so by healing ourselves, focusing on ourselves, we heal ourselves, and that heals the rest of the world along with it. So that's kind of the practice that I'm working on. There's more to come. I don't know if my certification yet, but it's coming soon. And there'll be more on Insight Timer about that for next year too. But I guess just coming back to book publishing, I think that I've got one book. Second book is very nearly done, still not quite out there yet, but will be at some point very, very soon. And I think that, of course, like anything in the world, there's things that maybe that we love, that we don't love, things that don't go as the way that we plan them to, etc., etc. But I think that, right now we're so lucky, like we're so incredibly lucky, right? If it was like even just 100 years ago, to get access to be able to get a book published, that would have been so difficult. That would have been so, so difficult. Now we can literally at the click of our fingers do whatever it is that we want, right? Yes, we have to put the hard work in, right? So writing a book doesn't just come to you overnight, right? It's something you have to put energy into. You have to actually sit there, spend the time writing, getting it edited, getting it reviewed, getting people's thoughts and commentary, being able to make it the best thing that you want it to be. But essentially anybody can be an author now. You just need to be willing to do the work to do it, right? Anybody can be, a teacher on an app. They just have to be willing to put the energy into it. And so it really comes down to your passion, right, into that thing. So yeah, I think that it's incredible that we just have this opportunity that we can even get our work out there in that way. And we have all the choices as well. Do we want to go the traditional route? Do you want to go independently? Like, you get to choose. And so it's really, really, I think, amazing that the options are there. And I think that it's better that we focus on what the opportunities are that we do have, as opposed to maybe the things that we don't.
Yeah, similar thing too in music, Fabienne. I mean, not many record companies are around now, but I am independent myself, so musicians can choose where they want to go as well. But Amazon, you can publish on Amazon too.
Yeah, absolutely. Publish on Amazon. There's many different ways that are out there. You can get things on Kindle. You can do whatever it is that you need to do, that you want to do, right? So there's nothing that's holding you back. And so I think, because we started at the beginning, thinking about dreams and goals and visions, right? If there's something that you want to write, if there's something you want to publish, if there's music that you want to create, if there's a podcast that you want to do, go ahead and do it, right? Go ahead and do it. This is your sign. Go ahead and do that thing. All you need to do is figure out what the steps are, and you can make that happen one way or another.
Exactly. It's like the Beatles. They actually got a lot of rejection, and then one day the manager saw something in them.
Well, most people don't get, it's like anything. You have to show that you really want that thing, right? If you really, really want something, you're not going to get it first time necessarily. Sometimes some people do, but most of the time you're going to have to work. You're going to work towards that thing, And so it's important to remember, just because someone says no to you doesn't mean that anybody else is going to say no to you. People say no to me all the time, and that's totally fine.
That's
right?
entrepreneurship, Fabienne. You're going to get a lot of no's before you're going to get the one yes. And it's very rewarding when you get the yes. But the point I'm talking about the Beatles, Fabienne, is that, it's amazing. Like, they're still remembered today. This is directed by, I think it was edited by Peter Jackson. That's, the Beatles are still remembered to this day. And the
Yeah, well, I
impact
mean,
they had on the world,
when you're iconic, you will be remembered, right?
Elvis Presley as well.
Absolutely. There's so many great people out there that obviously are still remembered today for the greatness that they brought to the world, for their uniqueness, for their gift that they delivered to the world, right? And so it's a beautiful thing to know that, we still have the honor of being able to know parts of their story and, listen to their music and read their books and learn from them. I think that's probably one of the reasons why I felt so called to write and to be an author and to share my work with the world, because it's a really interesting way of thinking, wow, there will still be, when I'm no longer here, there will still be something of me that is here. The teachings that I have, or the thoughts that I have, will still be in the world, so that, for generations, even just if it's only in your own family generations, they can still learn from you. Like, that was my great grandmother. This is the book that she wrote. Probably sounds super weird by the time the world shifts and changes then, because I think that we're going to have such a different world. It's really interesting, the times right now, but it's super cool. So yeah, when you got, for example, you were saying sharing the Beatles, but yeah, there's so many people that are just iconic, and it's incredible to think that we still get to be blessed by their work.
Oh yeah, all the time. Especially authors like you had C.S. Lewis in the Chronicles of Narnia, J.R. Tolkien. The Lord of the Rings is still read today. I never read a lot of books as a kid, but those The Hobbit as well was a must read if you can. It's very creative. Yeah. And Harry Potter, I think J.K. Rowling, she had so many no's before Harry Potter was published. Did you read Harry Potter?
No, I didn't. I'm not very big on those kinds of work. The books that I read are mostly either personal development, psychology, things like that, and then also a lot of business books I read as well. Some of the yoga kind of yoga or yogic type books of those traditions and things like that as well is really my favorite. So yeah, that's kind of my reading space.
Did you ever get into any Wayne Dyer? Because he's very interesting to learn and listen to.
Interesting. Do you know, I got gifted a book. Somebody gifted me a book from him some time ago, quite a long time ago, at least maybe 7 years ago now. And it's still in my book collection in London. I never actually read it. Sometimes I think that certain books come into your life and the information's not for you. So often if I have a book and it stays on the shelf and it doesn't get read, I just know that either there's a point in my life to which this is going to be important to me, and I'll suddenly go to the shelf and pick that book out and start reading it, or it will just maybe stay there. But I think in order to read books, you really need to resonate with the author. You need to resonate with the style of writing. You need to enjoy it, and I don't think it needs to necessarily be written in a very easy manner, but it needs to be something that you really deeply connect with in order to keep your attention and in order to keep you, turning the pages.
I like audiobooks better.
Yeah, for me, audiobooks are nice, but I really I have such a preference to books, and actually physical books. And I was talking with a client yesterday, and she was saying, how do you remember all this knowledge from all these books? And she was like, what are you doing with them, And literally all of the books that I read, I highlight them. So whenever I find things that are interesting, I highlight it. And then that way, when I leave the book on my bookshelf, if at a certain point I'm thinking about, oh, in that book, I was reminded of this specific thing, let me pull that out. I can just pick the book up and flip through, and I know it will be one of the things that I have highlighted. So I think that's a really great way of being able to kind of absorb and maintain that information, you know, not lose it in and amongst the bigger piece of the book. And also book summaries, putting book summaries together are really, really great as well. But for listening, I'm more a podcast person. So I just finished getting completely up to date with Glennon Doyle's We Can Do Hard Things. So now every time they bring a new podcast episode out, I'm available to like listen to that. But I've listened to every single one of hers. And I'm working through Unlocking Us with Brené Brown at the minute. So that's like my go-to podcast if I'm making lunch or dinner or something like that, getting ready in the morning. Then I'm typically at the minute listening to the Brené Brown podcast.
Like this there's so much podcasts out there on spirituality too, and philosophy. I like Wayne Dyer. He's good to listen to as well. Summaries are good. I'm part of the Stress Fit community on Insight Timer with summarizing a book by Muji, Faster Than Sky, Greater Than Space. So it's good to have someone summarizing the book too. I like Dr. Joe Dispenza's work as well. He's a wonderful author, and Deepak Chopra when I can, David G as well. So they're wonderful to read. But I don't know, Fabienne, there's so many personal development books out there. I found if I get too much into it or overload myself, it can you know, create that brain fog for me, and I just gotta let it go sometimes and put action. You know, I feel like, you know, we're getting so much theory, but until we put it into practical, you know, that's how it's gonna work.
Well, with anything that you have, right? In this age, we are being bombarded by information all of the time, right? Even if you didn't read another book or listen to another podcast again, you'll probably be bombarded with information just through text messages on your phone or phone calls, things that you see on social media, right? You've removed all of those other sources. So recognizing that there's just an influx of information, it's really about figuring out what information is important to you. And so if you're reading a book or listening to an audio book, it's about taking the nuggets of wisdom. That's why I work on the basis of the highlighting, right? Because I know not every single word throughout that book is going to resonate with me. And then not every word is going to be memorable for me. But there will be certain segments of the book, maybe a paragraph or a sentence, that are really going to hit home to me. And it's in those moments where I want to retain that information and capture that so that I have access to it for the future. So I think that it's really about just taking the nuggets of wisdom that do resonate with you and then letting the rest go. Like, you don't need any of the other stuff. You don't need to remember all of the other pages, right? If you can just take those little nuggets, that's what's going to help you. And then actually go ahead and implement those little things, right? So if you are learning about certain thing, or you're listening to a podcast, or you're taking a course, right? It's about taking that knowledge and how do I integrate it into my life now? So it doesn't just become another thing that was information bombarding you.
That's what we have today, information overload, 24/7.
Yeah, but we get to choose, right? I don't feel that I'm overloaded with information because I choose what information, right? I choose what comes in. I choose what I allow myself to watch or to see or to work with. And so I think there needs to be more discernment around what information we allow.
Yeah, exactly. Now, this is always amazing having you on the podcast as well, Fabienne. I really like to thank you for coming on the show today as well. Is there anywhere people can find you on social media or reach out to you?
Yes, definitely. So if you go to Fabienne Sandoval on Instagram, you can find me there. I am always putting up lots of content. So at the moment, we're in December 2021. At the minute, there's a lot of content about goal setting and how to understand, plan out your dreams, your visions, different tips and tricks on that. So definitely go ahead there and take a look at that. And then our last previous month, we were doing things around healing the inner child and rewriting your story. So really, really interesting content on there. So definitely worth checking me out over there. And you can also go to my website, www.fabiennesandoval.com.
No, that's awesome. Always looking forward to your work as well, what you're going to publish too, and keep up the great work.
Thank you so much.
No, you're welcome. Yeah, and that's awesome to have you on as well. And yeah, I'd like to do this again with you.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for having me, Stephen.
You're welcome.